My name is Nick, and I'm on the Vancouver Startup Week team this year. Before we begin, I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered here today on Indigenous land, regardless of where you are joining us from. I'm grateful to be on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. I'm privileged to live, work, and play on these lands. Being said, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today for Vancouver Startup Week 2021. And welcome to the session with UBC Sauder School of Business, titled How to Launch an Internship Program. If you have any questions for our speakers, please post them in the Q&A in the Whova session. If there's any questions someone's already asked that you would like to see answered, definitely feel free to upvote those questions as well. And I'll now pass the mic over to Marcel, and we'll begin the session.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm just having some technical difficulties here sharing my screen. Just one moment. There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcel Kayabani. I am a business development manager with the UBC Sauder School of Business. I'm really excited to share some information today on how you can build your talent pipeline and launch and scale a successful internship program. A lot of this information is also publicly available. I'll make sure to make my slides available to everyone. I'll be sharing some links in the chat later on, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at any point in the conversation today. And so just to quickly introduce myself, a little bit about me. So I have about 10 years of experience in the career development space. I've worked in co-op programs before. I've done a ton of recruitment. I'm also a certified emotional intelligence coach. One of the really cool things that we do at UBC Sauder is every student who comes through our doors, they get emotional intelligence coaching. So it's one of the things that I really love about working here. I'm also on the board of directors for a local nonprofit organization. I love giving back to my community. I live in Richmond, so that's where I volunteer my time. And I recently got a Peloton, and so I'm obsessed with it. I do a lot of Peloton riding, but that's just a little bit about me so that you know who you're listening to, and you're always welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or by email anytime after today's session. So I want you to take a moment to kind of think about this question here. What is your organization's biggest barrier to launching or scaling an internship program? When I talk to companies, whether they're startups, small to medium-sized businesses, even when it comes to really large organizations, some of the things I hear are, do we have the right supervision? You might not have the managers in the organization that can supervise a student. I hear about funding. We might not have the budget to hire a student. There might be skepticism around whether a student can add value to your team and, whether it might actually create more work than alleviate your workload. So there could be a ton of reasons why you may not have launched an internship program yet. And I'm here to hopefully answer some of those questions and provide alternatives and provide solutions. So let's do an overview of what we're going to cover today. I definitely want to talk about the benefits of starting an internship program. And if you're here representing your company and you're not on the leadership team of your company, I'm going to kind of show you how you can build a little bit of a business case for bringing interns into your company. Then we'll talk about navigating the recruitment process as well as the funding options that are available to help offset the cost of hiring students, as well as how you can create an exceptional internship experience, and finally, how you can engage further with UBC talent, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So you might have heard the term co-op and internship used interchangeably. In this presentation, I will be using the two words interchangeably, but to give you kind of the university dictionary definition of an internship versus a co-op. So internships typically take place in the summers only. They are a requirement for certain programs. For example, at the Sauder School of Business, we have the full-time MBA program, which has a mandatory internship requirement. And then we have a Master's of Business Analytics. So these students study descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, and they also have a mandatory internship component as well. Typically, internships are anywhere between 8 to 16 weeks long. They're full-time, but they can be part-time, and they're also paid opportunities. Most often, we see that internships kind of hit that 12-week mark, which is about 3 months. They're full-time at around 30 to 40 hours a week, and they're paid an average salary anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 a month, depending on the type of work that the student is doing. And I'll get into average salaries a little bit later as well. When it comes to co-op, students are part of a formalized co-op program, and the rules for co-op are actually set by the Canadian Association for Cooperative Education and Work Integrated Learning. So these students are available at 3 different times throughout the year, from the summer, fall, and winter, and we call these work terms. Students must complete a minimum of 420 hours in a work term, which is about 12 weeks of full-time work, and the role must be paid. There are also a couple of deliverables when it comes to the co-op program. For example, they have to complete a final report and do some evaluations, but essentially there is a lot of overlap between internships and co-ops. And a lot of internships can be turned into a co-op. So today I'll be using the language interchangeably. Now, you might be wondering, what are some of the benefits to having an internship program? Well, first, it creates a diverse pipeline of talent for you. An internship program can be considered a year-round recruiting tool, whether it's fall internships, summer internships. It really creates an ongoing pipeline for future full-time employees. Essentially, what happens is students get exposure to your business. They get exposure to the role. They learn more about what your company does, and that creates a sense of loyalty. And so what happens is a lot of students will be really excited about joining a company full-time after they've completed an internship or after they have graduated from their degree program. Another benefit of an internship program is employer branding and visibility. So, if you don't have the capacity necessarily to bring on a ton of interns at the same time, hiring even 1 or 2 interns increases your brand and visibility among all students. One of the things that our research shows is that word of mouth is imperative. So students are oftentimes telling each other about their amazing experiences at their different internships. They're the ones who are out there becoming an ambassador for your company and increasing the visibility for future full-time hiring, future customers. So think about it from that really holistic perspective. For some other companies, it might be the fact that interns are a cost-effective, short-term hiring solution. So as I mentioned, the average salary for an undergraduate intern is approximately $3,000 a month when it comes to business interns, at least, which is a really cost-effective way of bringing on talent to help alleviate your workload, to help you work on projects that are maybe sitting on the back burner right now. And also, these terms are anywhere from 3 to 4 months, and they can extend up to 8 months long. So that kind of short-term hiring solution to fill a gap is another great benefit of internship programs. But if you look at it from an internal perspective, internship programs can also help with your internal leadership development. So what we see in a lot of companies who look at their internship program from a strategic point of view, they see it as a way to get their top performers to flex their leadership skills. So maybe you have someone who's a few years into their career, they're maybe on the verge of being promoted into a leadership position, and you want to offer them a stretch opportunity. An internship program is a really great way for that person to develop their leadership skills, to demonstrate their ability to manage talent, so that when they are ready for that promotional opportunity, you can then evaluate them against their performance having managed interns. And finally, an internship program is a great way to close the skills gap. As we know, right now, there's a huge shortage of talent in a variety of different areas, especially in areas like analytics and data science, in software development and engineering, in digital marketing, for example. And so by investing in early talent, in young talent, it's a great way to ensure that you have the skills in your organization so that you're not having to go shop for talent out in the market. It's a way to just grow your own talent and make sure that you don't have a skills gap at your organization. So with all of that said, you have a really strong case for your leadership teams to create an internship program. In addition to everything that I just shared, internship programs create time for current employees to work on advanced or creative projects. You might have someone internally on your team right now who is really keen on working on a certain project, but they just don't have the capacity to do so. So why not take some of the administrative burden off of that person, maybe some of the more entry level or rudimentary projects off of their plate, allow them to get creative and innovative and work on those advanced projects, and get an intern who's really keen and hungry to get their foot in the door to work on some of those more entry level tasks. Students are also a great way to apply the latest strategies, the latest technology, and introduce fresh perspectives on our team. They're the ones who know how to use things like TikTok for marketing. They're learning all about the latest trends that are cool among their peers, so they can bring all of that really valuable insight onto your team. I've already mentioned everything about employer branding, but I think community involvement and giving back to your community is a great way to think about it as well. If you are a Vancouver-based startup or a Vancouver-based small business, one of the best ways that you can give back is by cultivating the talent locally here in Vancouver. And what a great way to do that. It's to partner with your local universities and colleges. And we would be so happy to partner with you. I've talked about the mentorship and leadership opportunities for your current employees. It's just a great way to grow your own unicorns, those unique kind of skill sets that only you can develop within your organization. And finally, one of the things that may not be as obvious is there's a lot of data out there that suggests that having internship experience is a major differentiator when HR folks or when hiring managers are choosing between two equally qualified candidates. On average, internships have a 4.5 out of 5 influence rating on hiring decisions. So if a student or if a new grad has experience, has that internship exposure, they're more likely to have a really successful career after graduation. So we really do look to our local employer partners to help us develop that experience in students. Some more interesting data for you. In a recent survey by the National Association of College Educators, college and career educators rather, 56% of interns converted to full-time entry-level hires in 2019. Now we are sharing 2019 data because of course 2020 was a pandemic year and is an anomaly, but that's a really strong indication of students wanting to stay at the companies that they do internships with. 72% is the 1-year retention rate for hires with internal internship experience. So if there's a candidate who has done an internship with you and they convert to full-time, the statistics there show that 72% of them are going to stay with your company for 1 year or longer after they've been hired as a full-time candidate. And then finally, 9 out of 10 companies look at internship programs as part of their equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy. So one of the great things about working at a university as diverse as UBC and as diverse of a school as Sauder is that if you have KPIs or strategies around increasing the equity, diversity, and inclusion practices at your organization, students are a great way to kind of help you get there. We have immense depth of diverse talent at Sauder, students who are really keen at bringing in the EDI strategies that they're learning in class to your organizations. So just another great piece of data there. All right, so that was a lot of information, but your leadership is now on board. You were able to build that business case for them. So what comes next? Now what? Let's talk a little bit about internship design. So when you're scoping out an internship, I recommend that you start with some of these questions. What are the specific needs, projects, or tasks that the student is going to work on? What are the deliverables of the internship once it's completed? What are the skills or knowledge that is essential for the success of this role? What type of supervision or accountability can we offer? What is the capacity for your office to supervise in a meaningful way? What type of professional development and training can you offer? And of course, what type of internal or external fundings can you identify? So when you're scoping out an internship, starting out with these questions is really important so that you're creating a meaningful experience for not only yourself, but also for the student. And that will ensure that you have a really strong experience all around. The next step is to connect with your university partners. So if you are interested in hiring business talent, as well as a hybrid of business and technical talent, because as I mentioned, we do have that Masters of Business Analytics program. We also have coming up a tech analytics leadership track in our MBA. We also have students who are studying business technology management, as well as a combined major in business and computer science. So whether it's a business or a hybrid of business and technology, I am your point of contact. So I can help you with all of those roles. But then we also have an engineering faculty if you're looking for engineering talent. We have a science faculty if you're looking for research assistants or software developers. If you're in the arts and humanities space, we also have an arts co-op program. Kinesiology as well is another option, and then of course forestry and land and food systems. So if you are looking to connect with any of these different faculties, feel free to reach out to me directly and I will be more than happy to put you in touch with the correct contact. And of course, tapping into funding options, particularly for startups or small businesses, is something that is a major incentive. So I'm happy to share that the federal government has created a program that is called the Student Work Placement Program. So the Student Work Placement Program provides funds towards paid work experience related to post-secondary students' field of study, and it's open to both technical and non-technical students across Canada. The way that the funding works is that the federal government has created this pool of money and they've distributed it to a number of different employer delivery partners that are aligned with different industries in the market. which I will share with you in just a moment. And then the fund is also open to both co-op and non-co-op students. So if you end up hiring an MBA intern, you can also leverage this funding. If you hire a business co-op student, you can leverage this funding. The one stipulation I will make is that there is pretty strict eligibility criteria for this funding. So the student must be a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or hold refugee status in Canada. So if you are going to be tapping into this funding, we will want to make sure that we include a line in your job posting so that students self-select in and out based on this eligibility criteria. And during your interview process, we ask that you verify their eligibility again, just so that we don't get into any sticky situations down the line. And then of course, the funding cannot be stacked with any other federal funding. So sometimes employers will ask me, hey, can I use multiple different types of funds to pay the student salary? Unfortunately, when it comes to federal funding, it cannot be stacked with other types of federal funding. So if you have an IRAP grant or an NSERC grant, unfortunately, you won't be able to use it in this case. However, the good news is that the wage subsidy is actually 75% of the student's salary up to a maximum of $7,500. So what that kind of demonstrates is that the out-of-pocket expense for a startup or for a small to medium-sized business is actually minimal. With the average salary of a student being about $3,000 a month, you might only be paying a couple $1,000s out of pocket after you take into account this funding option. And then the commitment on your end is relatively low. So the application process takes about 20 minutes. The response time varies, so you can hear back within 2 business days, up to 3 weeks. It really just depends on how many applications they've received at that time. And the funding does allow for remote work placements as well as in-person work placements. You can apply at any time before the internship, during the internship. Sometimes you can even apply after the internship if they still have money left over. So you might still be able to get some of your spring interns covered if you had some spring interns. And it is approved on a first come, first serve basis. I will note that the 75% wage subsidy was just announced today. So if you do go onto the website of any of the funding, any of the funders that I'm going to show you on the next slide, and it still says $5,000, don't worry, they will be changing that soon. So it was literally announced this morning that they are increasing the wage subsidy up to 75%. So here are the different employer delivery partners for the Student Work Placement Program, also known as SWIP. So if your company falls within the bioeconomy or the bioagroeconomy, I recommend BioTalent. If you're in the green economy, environment, sustainability, there's Eco Canada. Many of you might be in the tech sector, so ICTC, or the Information and Communications Technology Council, as well as Tech Nation. Those are 2 different options available to you. You could go with either one. So the bottom one says Venture for Canada, which is open to entrepreneurs, startups, small to medium-sized businesses, and nonprofits. Unfortunately, they have shared that they are not accepting applications for the summer, and their fall applications will be opening shortly. So my recommendation would be to go with one of the other funding options that are listed there, because your company likely falls under one of the other ones. But if you don't see your industry represented there, you're welcome to apply for one of the 2 that say all industries. So Magnet and Ontario Chamber of Commerce, they're kind of a catch-all funder. So if you don't see your industry represented, go ahead and apply to Magnet or to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. And in terms of when students are available, so as I mentioned, co-op students are available year-round. They can start in January, in May, or in September. But then in the summer, your talent pool widens a lot. So we will have undergraduate students who are not in the co-op program available for internships over the summer. We also have our MBA interns. I have about 25 MBA interns who are still seeking an internship. So if you do want students to work on things like market research, go to market strategy, pricing analysis, putting together your pitch decks if you're going into a fundraising round, our MBA students can really help out in all of those places. They can help your companies find efficiencies. So if you do have a need for an MBA intern, please reach out to me. We are accepting postings right now, and students are available to start anytime in June. And then finally, the analytics intern. So for the Masters of Business Analytics, they're actually starting in July, and they're available to do any type of work along the analytics spectrum. So whether it's a data science, machine learning, AI, business analyst type roles, feel free to send those my way. Typically, I would recommend that you post your job 2 to 4 months in advance of the start date. Obviously, if you have an immediate need, we're always willing to accommodate those last kind of quick turnaround timelines. But leading into September, if you want to bring on a fall intern, I would recommend posting your job by kind of the July timeframe so that we make sure that you have access to the largest talent pool. As your company gets more sophisticated in its internship recruiting, you'll probably start to notice that a lot of really large companies hire early. So you do want to hit that 4-month mark as you start to grow your internship program, just so that you get access to the largest talent pool available. One other thing that I'll mention is when you do send us your job posting, we typically will post it for 1 to 2 weeks. If it is a quick turnaround, we'll post it for even less than a week. And then after the deadline passes, we recommend that your interview process or any assessments that you might be doing, if there's like a coding test or something like that, that it takes no longer than 2 weeks after that. And the reason for that is because students are applying to multiple jobs at once. And in order to secure your top talent, we want to make sure that, that the interview process allows for that to happen. So obviously now we are in Gen Z, or Gen Z rather, and we have a lot of really young talent who are, have kind of unique needs or unique outlooks in today's market. So what is Gen Z looking for in employers? Our research shows us that number one, they really want to make a positive impact on their local community. So for those of you who are building, Vancouver-based startups, who are, working on, really innovative solutions, different problems out there. If you're working on, if you're a small business that's giving back to the community, these students are really going to be keen to work with you. They're looking for motivating and stimulating work. They want to be challenged, but they're also looking for flexible working practices and healthy work-life balance. I even hear the term work-life integration. So right now, one of the things I think a lot of us are talking about is how we're going to balance working from home versus working in office. So, that's something that now Gen Z is getting used to. So it's certainly something that you'll want to consider. Diversity and inclusion is top of mind to many Gen Z students. They want to work in an organization that values them, that values diversity and inclusion, where they feel like they belong and that they can be their true selves. That's really important to them. And then finally, they are looking for training, mentorship, and hopefully mobility down the line. And by mobility, we mean promotion, whether it's a vertical or horizontal promotion. They're just looking to do different types of work down the line in their career. But that training and mentorship component is key. So with all of that said, how can you put together a job description that is going to attract a really top candidate? So here is a little bit of an outline as to how you can put your job descriptions together and attract the best talent. The first thing is all about the job title. And this might be something that you're already really familiar with, but you want to make sure that your job title is reflective of the responsibilities and the role, as well as the program or the major of the student that you're trying to target. Our data very clearly shows on our job posting platform that if the job is called business intern, or if it's just called intern, or if it's just called co-op student, the click-through rates are very low. But when it's called digital marketing intern or digital marketing strategist, or if it's called operations intern or software development intern, those positions get a lot of click-throughs because the student knows exactly what that job is probably going to entail. It attracts them. The next step is to make sure that you put a lot of really great information about your company. So, company history is great, but talk about your vision, your mission, your values. Students want to find ways that they can align with your company, especially when putting together their application. They want to be able to find those synergies. So putting some information about your company is great. Of course, following that is a little bit about the role. So tell the candidate how this role is going to contribute to the organization, what their impact is going to be, how you're going to support the student over the duration of the internship, how it might contribute to their professional growth and development. And of course, indicate where the job is going to be located, if it's remote, if it's a hybrid role, if it requires them to relocate to a different part of the province or a different part of the country. That's important for students to know. The next piece is around responsibilities. So make sure that things are listed in the order of importance, keep it really short and clear, make sure that you're using relevant industry terms, and make sure that you're using gender neutral language. We do see every once in a while job postings that still have different pronouns on there or make assumptions about the gender of the student, and start your sentences with verbs. When it comes to the education and experience section, we suggest that you focus on competence, not on the years of experience. We still see job postings for interns that say 1 to 3 years of experience. And students are going to have immediate imposter syndrome about that. They're going to select out of a job posting that requires too much experience from them. Most students will have less than a year of experience, unless they're an MBA student. So we do want to make sure that you're mindful that you're making those adjustments in your job descriptions before posting them. Include soft and hard skills. Some of our students may not have all of the exposure that you're looking for in the hard skills or in the technical skills. So by including some of the soft skills in there, that's a great way to make sure that you still get a really great diverse pool of students applying for your job, so that you can pick the best fit for your company versus students who are really confident about a specific skill set that they bring. And then finally, we suggest that you include a section that's called Why Our Company. Tell them about the additional perks of your company, of your organization. Include a link to your website. Talk about how the student is going to grow and develop over the course of this internship. For your overall job description, just make sure that it's not too short, because students are skeptical of really short job descriptions, and make sure that it's not too long. A really long job description likely won't get read. So you want to make sure that it's kind of in that Goldilocks kind of medium length there. Ensure that it really demonstrates your company's voice and tone. And of course, link any social media platforms that you're on or videos that you might have about your company. That type of information is always really great for students to see. All right, so when it comes to interviews and offers, we suggest that you keep us, your university partner, informed about your shortlist and any offers that you're making, but it's certainly not an absolute requirement. It's always great because we love partnering with you. We want to be able to help you through the process. So, we can help with interview scheduling, but you're also welcome to reach out to the students directly. We suggest that you schedule interviews at least 3 days in advance to give students some time to prepare or to move things around in their schedule. As I'm sure you can remember from your time in college or university or any academics that you may have done, if you're taking 5 courses and involved in some extracurricular activities, your schedule might be very packed. So giving them a little bit of time to prepare for the interview or to schedule that interview is great. When you're ready to make an offer, we suggest that you do send the student a formal offer letter, whether it's through email or you give them a contract, but the student must be considered an employee of your organization or of your company, which means that they need to be on your payroll. So we do not support hiring students as independent contractors. There's a lot of risk and liability involved in that. So the best way to ensure that all parties are protected and that we mitigate those risks and that liability is to ensure that they are an employee of your company. And once you do make an offer to a student at UBC, we have a guiding principle, which is that students are required to make a decision about their offers within 2 business days. So that's one thing that you can rely on, is that you won't have to wait a really long time to hear back from a student about an offer, because they are required to report it into us and to make a decision relatively quickly. I will note that recruitment at UBC is done on a first come, first serve basis. So if you are working with any other university partners, you might know about something called rank and match. So it's when all job postings are posted at once, they all have the same deadline. Students will then rank their top companies, employers rank their top students, and then the university matches them. We don't do that. We want students to experience what it's really like to go out into the market and compete for jobs. So that means for you that recruitment is done on a first come, first serve basis. So those timelines that I mentioned earlier around posting 2 to 4 months in advance will ensure that you have the largest talent pool. Wrapping up your interview process within 1 to 2 weeks after the posting deadline is another great way to ensure that you get that top talent. So yay, your student has accepted your offer. So now what? Let's talk about how you can create an exceptional internship experience. And that starts with understanding Gen Z. So based on a ton of research that we've done, Gen Z is all about nonconformity, undefined identity. They're very fluid when it comes to, changing around different trends that are going on. And, they're kind of like chameleons in a sense. They're also radically inclusive. That's why diversity and inclusion is so important to them, because they are trying to strive for a better future. They want to make sure that there is equity, diversity, and inclusion at the forefront of everything that we do. Another thing that's important is they really want to do well in the role. So recognition is important to them. As a manager, as a company, as a supervisor, it's important that you know that finding ways to recognize your student talent is a great way to ensure that they are engaged in your company culture and that they continue to stay motivated and do the work that you set out for them to do. Gen Z is also very used to self-directed micro-learning or that DIY approach. So with the popularity in platforms like Coursera, Udemy, DataCamp, and things like that. There are lots of different micro-learning platforms where students are taking courses on the side. They're doing it self-directed. They're taking on different virtual experience programs. So that's something that you can leverage. You may notice that a student might not have all of the skills that you're looking for on their resume, but very easily, if you were to mention to them, hey, I'd love for you to take this course on, predictive analytics, they can very easily find a free course online, do it in a few hours, and they will be ready to kind of hit the ground running and start to add value to your business. Another thing about Gen Z is that they really like high touch, high tech. So high tech, obviously they love technology, they're digitally fluent, but high touch in this case is very similar to the next point around regular touch points and regular feedback. So obviously in a virtual environment, we're unable to do in-person. In-person is actually Gen Z's preference. So pre-pandemic, all of our research showed that Gen Z wanted in-person touch points, in-person feedback. They would rather have an in-person conversation. And especially at the beginning of the pandemic, as a university, we felt it. We got a lot of feedback that students cannot wait to be back on campus. Students cannot wait to go back to work in person. But in a virtual environment, the way that you can simulate that is by creating one-on-one meetings every, once a week or twice a week. You can set up a Slack chat with you and your student and check in at the beginning and end of each day. Just having those regular touch points and offering them that kind of informal feedback along the way is a great way to keep them engaged. And then finally, stability and financial security is very important to Gen Z. They saw their parents, their siblings go through some really major crises with the financial crisis and other things that have been going on recently during the pandemic, of course. So stability and financial security is a major value for these students. So thinking about your internship program from that long-term perspective around how you can offer students an opportunity to maybe stay on with you part-time in the future, or offer a competitive salary, or make them a full-time employee after they graduate from their university program is something that's going to be very interesting to Gen Z students. When it comes to managing your intern, it's important to set clear expectations right from the beginning. So we noticed that students are going to make some assumptions if they are not given clear instructions. So if you have a social media policy, if you have a cell phone at work policy, or whatever it may be, just make sure that you run through all of those things with your student at the beginning and not make any assumptions about kind of common sense things that they might know, because things are changing every day in terms of what Gen Z values about the way that they work. I also suggest that you ask your student to set learning goals or learning objectives for the duration of their internship with you, and review them at the beginning, review them again at the middle, and then review them again at the end. That kind of keeps you on track in terms of the progress that the student is making on goals that they've set for themselves. But it's also important for you to co-create those goals so that the student knows that you're bought into their learning journey and that they continue to add value to your organization. We've talked about setting weekly or biweekly check-ins. Another really cool thing that I started doing with the interns that I've managed is I set small challenges for them. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, when you're an intern, you might be afraid to ask questions or meet new people. So you might set a couple of challenges like, okay, this month I want you to go for a coffee chat or a virtual coffee chat with one new person outside of our team every week. Or you might set a challenge for them to lead a team meeting in their second month. Or you might set a challenge for them to do a presentation for your founder, for your C-suite or your leadership, midway through the term. So these are ways that students can continue to develop their skill set, continue to be bought in and engaged into the company, but allows them to kind of stretch themselves over the course of the internship. We've talked a lot about feedback and giving that in-time feedback, but this last point around hacking influencer culture is really interesting. So students are really kind of plugged into influencers, for example, Gary Vaynerchuk, or different folks who are really famous on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. And what's really interesting about these different influencers is how inspiring they can be to students in terms of pursuing their future careers. One of the things that we suggest that you do is find someone internally within your organization or bring in guest speakers that you know about that can potentially mentor your interns, or that can give a guest lecture or a lunch and learn to your staff. This is a way for you to kind of hack that influencer culture that Gen Z is so involved in and make it a part of your organization. When it comes to managing and developing your own people, so you might have some really fresh supervisors who will be managing and coaching students. So to ensure that your managers have a really great experience, as well as the students having a great experience, it's important to invest some time in developing the management skills of your current employees. So one of the ways to do that is by learning different coaching skills. So learn how to ask powerful questions to unlock the potential of a student. Coaching is really a key skill to have as a manager. It's also important for managers to kind of understand the progressive career planning for a student who is really keen on staying within their company. And then how do you create the visibility for that student so that they are offered opportunities to join the company full-time in the future? So those stretch projects that I mentioned earlier, or those opportunities to present in front of your leadership teams, are all ways to help them in that progressive career planning and creating visibility for them. Once, pandemic restrictions are lifted, if your teams are still remote, but your students are keen on meeting in person, make sure that there is opportunity for them to meet with someone in person and have that in-person point of contact, because all of our pre-pandemic research suggested that students really want that in-person touch point. And then finally, create opportunities for reverse mentoring. Students have so many great skills and so many great insights to share. So how can you offer them opportunities to give back to your organization through reverse mentorship? So maybe you set them up with your CEO or someone on your team to kind of share back and forth in a really cool way. I talked a little bit about coaching, so I'm going to give you a couple of resources that I love for coaching skills. So if you are trying to build the coaching skills of your leadership teams or of your staff so that they can take on some interns in the future, I highly recommend these 3 books. They've been really important for me in my coaching journey. So I'll flash those up for a moment longer in case you want to take a picture of them. But as I mentioned, I'm happy to share the slides after the session today. And then of course you want to end your internship on a high note. So at the end of the work term, consider doing an exit interview or an exit survey or offering the student an opportunity to do a presentation. These are some of the questions that you can ask them, such as, what aspects of the internship were particularly impactful to you in your professional development? How did you feel about the supervision that you received? What projects are you proud of? If you had a magic wand, what would you change? And what this does is it gives you the opportunity to iterate and to continue making the internship experience better in the future. And if the student had a really great experience, always make sure that you empower them with the opportunity to become an ambassador at their university. Some companies even incentivize their past interns to go to campus and do coffee chats with students or to host events with prospective new students. So if you're not at that point yet, even just saying like, hey, we are going to be hiring an intern next semester as well. Would you be open to chatting with some students who might be interested? And a lot of students are very keen on that. In fact, at Sauder, one of the things that we do is if we know of students who've worked at previous companies and they have another job posting up, we will oftentimes connect students one-on-one so that they can share their internship experiences back and forth. So just empowering them with that option is a great way to keep them engaged so that if you do have an opportunity that pops up down the line for them to join you full-time, you know that that person is already bought into your culture and into your company. So a couple years ago, I had the privilege of seeing President Barack Obama at the convention center, and he kind of ended his talk with this quote, which he said, "What makes me optimistic about the future is the extraordinary talent, innovation, embrace of diversity that I see in young people. Empower them and they will rebuild the creaky institutions of the world." And that just really, kind of sat with me and resonated with me because I do feel that students are just so keen and they have so many great things to bring, and they just need someone who believes in them, who will empower them, who will give them that first opportunity so that they can go off and do amazing things. And one of the ways that you can empower that is through offering internship opportunities at your company. So if you are interested in recruiting at UBC, if you want to engage with talent, there are a variety of different ways that you can do that. We can host information sessions for you and your business. We can invite you to networking events. We can host different events that you are interested in being involved in. We can connect you with our student clubs. We can get you involved in our mentorship programs. For example, I run the sales mentorship program at UBC Sauder. So if you're looking to invest in sales talent, I'm your go-to person. There are a lot of different ways. So if you want to chat about how you can engage at UBC Sauder, how you can recruit from our students, or how you can recruit across UBC, you have my email address there. It's marcel.kayabani@sauder.ubc.ca. And I encourage all of you to also add me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just Marcel Kayabani there. We really want to make sure that you can join our ecosystem and build out your employer brand. So with all of that said, thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to my talk. And I'm gonna just check the chat here to see if there are any questions. All right, so Michael has a comment here. Didn't know that about co-op and the Canadian governmental organization oversight. Love that quote, so powerful and true. Yeah, absolutely. Michael, I'm not sure if you want to clarify the first part, if that was a question. I'm happy to share some more information about the government funding options.
Sorry. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you see my video right now? Oh, yes, there it is. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It said I got signed out for some reason from Zoom. So we actually do have a question here in the Q&A. Are there any internship management software as a service you'd recommend? Are you familiar with Symba, SYMBA?
I am not familiar with Symba or any internship management tools. We find that particularly when it comes to small to medium-sized businesses, a lot of it is done manually, but we try our best to take off as much of the work off of your plate. So all you really have to do is send in your job descriptions to us, and then we will take care of the rest. And we can even help you with interview scheduling and all of that.
Awesome. If anyone else has any other questions. Oh, here. Awesome info, thank you. If I'm a startup, will I still qualify for government grants if I want to hire interns?
Yes, so absolutely. The only thing that we need to make sure is that you are a registered Canadian business. And as long as you meet that requirement, then you're very likely to get approved for federal government funding. Especially if you've ever applied to any other federal grants, like for example, if you've applied for IRAP to do any of your research projects, if you've ever applied to MyTax, for example, then you're very likely to get approved for the student work placement program as well.
That's awesome. Thank you. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A right now.
So I'm just going to do one last quick plug. So as I mentioned, we have two groups of students who are actively looking for summer internships right now. If you have any need within your organization for analytics interns, our Masters of Business Analytics students are available. They have the technical skills in R, Python, and SQL to dive into your data, but then they take business and strategy courses as well, so that they kind of keep that your business kind of at the forefront of their mind as well. So if you are looking for analytics talent, feel free to reach out. And then our MBA interns are also available. They are looking for opportunities where they can, work on business strategy, finding process efficiencies, operations, entrepreneurial work, where they can do a little bit of everything. So I'll just put that plug in.
Thank you so much, Marcel.
My pleasure. Thank you all so much for joining in, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or by email.
Yeah, if you want to drop your LinkedIn and email in the chat so that everyone can find you. Yeah, and there's, I guess, just a question from me. If you have any final closing statements or important takeaways that you think that you'd like attendees to take away from the presentation, what do you think that would be?
So I think it's never too early to start an internship program. especially for startups and for small to medium-sized businesses. Sometimes there might be a hesitation, like I might not have the capacity to, or it might be too early for my business. But I work with a lot of startups, and because there's so much funding available to offset the cost of hiring, it's a great way to grow and scale your business and kind of fast track your companies. And if you're still unsure, I'm always happy to set you up with one of the other startups that have hired interns from us so that you can hear about their experience hiring. But happy to help in any way I can.